Hi friends, welcome to Drop-Ins with Dr. Awesome. I am Dr. Awesome, and we're going to talk a little bit about the studio cameras that we have over here in French. Now, the first question in your mind is probably, if I'm talking about cameras, why aren't I near one? And the answer is that studio cameras are different. They have multiple components. And while the body itself is out there in the studio, we have to start in here in the booth with these little boxes. So what are these little boxes? Well, these are our CCUs, or camera control units. They control camera power, iris, shutter speed, gain, and color correction for these cameras. Now, color correction is kind of a whole other thing that we'll talk about later. For the purpose of this video, we're just going to go over the basics and what you need to start shooting right now. So to start with, we'll go ahead and do camera power. On each of these three boxes, you can see up in the left-hand corner a button labeled Cam Power. I'm going to go ahead and turn on camera 2, and once it powers on, you will see it in the top right quadrant of my little monitor, and we're ready to move on. As with any camera, I would recommend white balancing before you start shooting. Since I'm in here by myself right now, I don't really have enough hands to go out with a white card and hit the button at the same time, but I can walk you through the process. What you would do is you'd put a white card out on set, just like anything else, and then you hit this button right here labeled Auto White, and that will set the white level off of your card on set. Once you've got your white balance, we're ready to look at shutter speed. Now, as you can see right here, our shutter speed is set at 1/60th of a second, and really for our studio, that's pretty appropriate, but if you need to adjust it, here's what you do. You first hit this button right here labeled Shutter, and then you hit Select, and then you use the right and left keys right over here to move it up and down. So there's Auto, 1/100th of a second, 1/250th of a second, and as I'm going through this, you can actually see the image changing in the monitor. So now we're back at 1/60th. I can also adjust my gain if I need to. That's these three buttons right here, low, mid, and high. If I go to mid, you can see my image gets brighter, high, brighter still. Now, again, as with any camera, I always recommend trying to leave it on the lowest gain setting, because while upping your gain will let in more light, it will also get in more of the other crap as well. Last thing we're going to look at on this unit right now is going to be the iris, and that's this knob right here. Turning it to your right will allow more light in, to your left will allow less light in. So I'll go ahead and set that back to about 3.8. Now, there are some other things on here. There's the master black and the color correction stuff, but like I said, that's kind of a whole another video in of itself. And in that video, we'll also go over vector gain and waveform and all of that. But for right now, let's just focus on the basics. That being said, let's hop out in the studio and we'll actually put hands on a camera. All right, so our camera's on. We've white balanced, we've set our shutter speed, we've messed with our iris a little bit. How do we actually point it at what we want to shoot? On the front of these cameras, on the tripod, there's a little lever right here. If I flip that, that's my pan lock. And then before I move it, I'm also going to unlock this right here. This is we call it the parking brake, but it's just a secondary tilt lock. So I'm going to unlock that, and then I'm going to pan this camera around to show you right here. This is our other tilt lock. So I'm going to go ahead and unlock that. Don't ever take your hands off this camera, because when I do, watch what happens. See it tilting? Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and roll back around and point my camera at the set, and we'll start working on getting it focused. Before I start actually focusing the camera, let me show you a couple of things. This is your zoom. To the right, zooms in. To the left, zooms out. And this is how you actually focus the camera. This little handle right here, turning it, it turns in either direction. That being said, I'm going to zoom in on my screen here and show you what a focused shot looks like. Practice is the exact same as it is with any other camera. You zoom in on your talent's eyes, focus up, and zoom back out. So I'm going to use the paddle on the right-hand side again. I'm going to zoom all the way in on my talent's eyes. I'm going to use the handle knob on the left-hand side. And I'm going to bring my shot in to focus, and then I can zoom back out. Now, one of the cool things about this camera is you see this little white bar here. See how far over to the right that is? That means the shot is pretty well focused. If you zoom all the way in here, you can adjust that. That's actually a focus assist. When it peaks, that's when you know you're in focus. One last thing I want to show you before I'm willing to call this done, and that's how to use the headset to communicate with the booth. So you've got your headset here, and then on the back of the camera right here, there's a switch that has 3 settings. If it's in the middle, your headset is off. You can't hear anyone and no one can hear you. If you go all the way up with that switch, you're always on. So everyone can hear you and you can hear everybody all the time. If you go all the way down with it, you can still hear everybody, but if you want to talk, there's a button over here above the zoom paddle you have to press to do so. And that's pretty much our studio camera. As always, the best piece of advice I can give you is practice makes perfect. Get in here, start using the equipment, start getting comfortable with it. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, call me, text me, whatever, and I will do my best to answer them. All right. Keep shooting, friends.